Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked where I climb the online Series 2 VGC ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. In this video, I'm going to be trying out a team that reached rank number 1 in the entire world on the ranked ladder featuring Umbreon. Now, Umbreon is not a very common Pokemon in VGC at the moment, but historically it's had some really great results, actually finishing second at the 2019 World Championships. This Umbreon set is really interesting. It's got Mirror Herb with the moveset of Foul Play, Snarl, Skill Swap, and Moonlight, and it's Water Terra as well. And so one of the main appeals of it is that it can actually really give opposing Dondozos trouble, especially if you're able to copy the boosts via Mirror Herb. Then you're able to Skill Swap Unaware away from Dondozo and make Umbreon just a complete monster, and it's difficult to deal with afterwards. But Umbreon also just has a lot of utility in the format. Snarl's really good into things like Indeedee plus Armarouge, and Foul Play is really good into all the physical attackers that exist in the format. The team also has some other fun components like Focus Sash, Weak Armor Armarouge plus Indeedee, and neither Armarouge nor Indeedee actually have Trick Room, which I think is really interesting as well. So, as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps down in the description below. And thank you so much as always for watching. If you enjoy, I'd really appreciate it if you consider leaving a like on the video or subscribing to the channel. It really helps out a ton. Anyway, let's dive into things. First of all, a huge thank you to Kai for building and sharing this team, as well as Sapphire for sharing it on Twitter. I have linked a rental and paste down in the description below if you want to try it out yourself. And question of the day, I want to know if you could design a new evolution. How would you design it in terms of typing, stats, abilities, and moves? Let me know down in the comment section below. And the first Pokemon to talk about on this team is, of course, Umbreon. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Umbreon is a really interesting utility Pokemon. This set has Water Terra, Mirror Herb, and Skill Swap. So I kind of see it as first a Dondozo answer, right? Because the thing is, with the Mirror Herb, the Water Terra, and the Skill Swap, like, you can copy Dondozo's boost if you position Umbreon properly, Skill Swap Unaware away from Dondozo, Water Terra defensively, and just chip away with Foul Play and Moonlight. Once you've KO'd Dondozo, Umbreon's actually really difficult to knock out if it's at +2 defense and +2 special defense, which I think is really cool. So that's one of the main interesting things about Umbreon, but Umbreon also just has a lot of utility in this format. You think about the number of physical attackers that are strong right now: Palafin, Dragonite, Baxcalibur. All three of those were on an international championship winning team. Umbreon can actually tank attacks from all of those pretty well. Water Terra in particular, really nice for Palafin. And then you can just, slowly KO things with Foul Play while also healing up with Moonlight. And Snarl's really good given the number of special attackers in the format, especially Indeedee plus Armarouge as a duel specifically. You can lead Umbreon to just Snarl immediately and give that some trouble. And so I think Umbreon is a really interesting Pokemon in the format. It's also very good when matchups where your opponent just can't knock you out very quickly. It can stay on the field for a long time and kind of disrupt your opponent. But I think my main thing that I've learned while playing with this team is you have to be really intentional about when to bring Umbreon and when not to bring it, because it can often actually feel like dead weight and actually hold you back if you bring it into the wrong matchups. For example, when I first started playing with the team, I was forcing Umbreon in every matchup, and the reality is that it's not very good into a lot of matchups, right? If your opponent's hyper offensive and they have a team with Great Tusk, Iron Hands, and Flutter Mane, Umbreon just trades very negatively against those, right? So I generally want to bring Umbreon when my opponent has a lot of Pokemon that are maybe a little bit more passive or physical attackers that don't have super effective hits into Umbreon. But if my opponent has Pokemon that can quickly knock out Umbreon, like Pokemon that outspeed us and can deal super effective hits into us, I'm a lot more wary in bringing this Pokemon. So Umbreon can be very hit or miss. In the right matchup, it can absolutely carry you to a victory. But if you bring it and you forego one of your more offensive options, you can often actually hold yourself back. So be careful, right? Because this Pokemon can often just be really passive. And Foul Play and Snarl are nice, right? But they don't necessarily do a ton of damage against certain Pokemon. So keep that in mind as you use Umbreon. The next combo to talk about on this team is Armarouge plus Indeedee. Now, we've seen this plenty of times. This isn't really anything crazy, but these sets are a little bit different, right? First of all, Armarouge is weak armor with Focus Sash, no weakness policy, and it's Dark Terra as well. And so what makes this really interesting is if you lead Indeedee and Armarouge, your opponents, especially in a best of one closed team sheet environment, are often going to expect you to want a Trick Room with one of the Pokemon, right? You don't even have Trick Room with either of these. The idea is that you can just go straight up for Helping Hand plus Expanding Force immediately, and often with the amount of physical attackers in the format, the Weak Armor will end up getting activated as well. And if Weak Armor gets activated, it's amazing because Armarouge then just can outspeed everything practically that doesn't have a speed boost, right? And so you can just potentially win the game on the first 2 turns by going for Helping Hand, Expanding Force, Helping Hand, Expanding Force, and often your opponents will double up onto Indeedee because they're worried about Armarouge Protect, Indeedee Trick Room. And so this combo takes advantage of the fact of the closed team sheet environment, and fan of the fact that players will often respect Trick Room when they see this combination. The entity here is Safety Goggles to give you a slightly better matchup into things like Amoonguss as well as Brute Bonnet. And yeah, you actually don't have Trick Room here. Instead, you have Helping Hand to maximize damage output as well as Protect and Follow Me and Psychic. So this is one really strong lead combo, as you may imagine. When I was using this team, I think I didn't understand the pure power of Helping Hand plus Expanding Force when I was first starting out. But with the Focus Sash and Weak Armor, like this is a really, really strong duo. And a lot of players just like will play a little bit scared of Trick Room, and you can just blow things up so quickly. To round out the team, you've got Choice Band, Dragonite. This is just, normal Terra with Choice Band and Extreme Speed, so that does a ton. But you've got Outrage, Rock Slide, and Low Kick. Outrage is basically really good against teams that don't have Fairy types because you can just click it, and even things that resist it, like Golden Goal, will be taking like over 50%, right? So that does massive amounts of damage. Particularly can be really good in a late game scenario. Rock Slide gives you good coverage into things like Fire type Pokemon, for example, and Low Kick is really valuable into things like Tyranitar, for example, as well as King Gambit. To round out the team, you've got Life Orb, Flutter Mane. Nothing too wild about this Flutter Mane site. It is just max special attack and max speed. I think the main thing about using this Flutter Mane is I try to clean up games with it, where I think Flutter Mane's a Pokemon that I've been conditioned to lead with, but with this team, you can lead it. For example, one lead you could go with this Dragonite Flutter Mane, especially against Assault Vest Arcanine. You can just go normal Terra, Extreme Speed into Shadow Ball to try to KO it, but I think Flutter Mane is a Pokemon that often can go down really quickly since you have no bulk here, right? And without Focus Sash, it's just a little bit more exposed. So if you're leading with it, you ideally want to make sure you can get multiple hits off with it, but often I bring it in the back after I've like chipped away at things enough where Flutter Mane can outspeed and KO everything. The final Pokemon is just an Assault Vest Iron Hands here. The main thing to call out is that you've got Heavy Slam, which is really valuable into opposing Flutter Manes, as well as other Fairy types like Sylveon, for example. And so it gives you a little bit more consistency while not taking recoil from Wild Charge. Sometimes you'll see Volt Switch over this slot, but yeah, otherwise pretty standard Iron Hands with a little bit of speed investment here to, try to win speed wars against opposing Iron Hands and King Gambit as well, for example. So yeah. In terms of how to utilize the team, I think there are a lot of different ways against more passive combos. Like you could go with an Umbreon lead. I think like Dragonite Umbreon, Flutter Mane Umbreon, Iron Hands Umbreon all can be pretty good, especially with fake out pressure. Like the Dragonite and Flutter Mane apply a lot of offensive pressure, whereas Umbreon applies defensive pressure. Entity Armarouge is obviously a really strong lead. Dragonite Flutter Mane is a good combo, especially if you're trying to just like quickly KO things with Extreme Speed and like Moonblast or Shadow Ball, for example. And so those are some of the main combinations that I've gone with. But yeah, let's quickly highlight some weaknesses. So first of all, in terms of weaknesses that I've run into, I think naturally when you use Entity and Armarouge, like you have to fear Wide Guard, for example. That's one thing that can be pretty scary. I think that now that this team is a little bit more public, your opponents might know that you don't have Trick Room on either Pokemon. They'll know about Focus Sash and Weak Armor potentially, so they might play a little bit smarter around this duo. So naturally, like the information being out there, especially with this having a fair amount of surprises on the team, can put the team at a slight disadvantage. So that's one thing to watch out for. Naturally, with Armarouge, Dark type Pokemon can be really concerning. Dark Terras as well can be tough, and because the Armarouge doesn't have any bulk here, like you really want to aim to get one or two big attacks off with it, but if your opponent is able to kind of just bypass those attacks early, it can give you a lot of trouble. With Flutter Mane here, you have no bulk and you have no Focus Sash, so this can go down really quickly. So I've had games where it's like, okay, my opponent has like a really defensive Pokemon, Flutter Mane doesn't get the knockout onto them, and they just KO me in return, and so this Pokemon can be really volatile, and even though it's super strong, can also go down very quickly, so that's one thing to watch out for. I think one of the awkward things is obviously Entity is on this team, so be mindful, because if you set up the Psychic terrain, you do block your own Fake Out and Extreme Speed, and so that can be pretty scary. Another thing to call out is like Dragonite, Iron Hands, and Umbreon all don't have Protect, and so you can potentially be a little bit exposed that way. Umbreon in particular is obviously going to be really weak into fighting and Fairy type attacks, and so for example, it's not really good into Iron Hands. If I see Iron Hands, Great Tusk, Flutter Mane, those Pokemon all immediately like give me a little bit concern. Yeah, I've run into, for example, like Iron Moth plus Flutter Mane before as well, and without leading Entity and Armarouge, that duo specifically actually kind of just destroyed me immediately. I think there was one game where I led like Iron Hands plus Umbreon, and they had Flutter Mane plus the Iron Moth, and they were Ghost Terra as well, so they just turn one went Ghost Terra, and they just went like Acid Spray, Dazzling Gleam, KO'd Iron Hands. Umbreon took 50%, and I was just so far behind immediately, right? And so that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Umbreon can be really passive sometimes, and like if you're not taking positive trades with it, or at least neutral trades with it, it can actually fall behind really, really quickly. Another thing with Entity and Armarouge is obviously Ice Spinner. I did run into Ice Spinner once on Great Tusk. They got rid of my terrain, and I struggled a lot more because then I was only able to target one Pokemon at a time. Without Psychic terrain, Entity and Armarouge just becomes a lot weaker. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And Dragonite, is quite strong here, but I think like ghost type Pokemon in general can be really scary, or ghost Terras, or opposing psychic terrains, because then extreme speed obviously just doesn't really have any value. And like there are a fair amount of Pokemon that can wall Dragonite. I think there was one matchup where I brought Dragonite as a lead and my opponent led like Fluttermane plus Screamtail, and I was like, I don't even know what I can really do with Dragonite right now, and it's kind of forces a switch. So I think like leading properly with this team is especially important, because I had a lot of games where it's like I didn't have the best lead, I was forced to switch immediately, but with the lack of protect on Dragonite, Umbreon, and Iron Hands, like it made things difficult, right? Especially I think if I led any of these Pokemon, I was in a bad lead position, so I can't protect to get out of things, so I essentially have to eat up damage or switch out immediately, which can be kind of scary. So yeah, those are just a couple of the things that I've run into, but let's get started with these games. Okay, we've got an opposing entity, Armarouge, Tyranitar, Sandy Shocks, Fluttermane, and the Screamtail. Interesting. Umbreon is actually really good into Entity Armarouge and Sandy Shocks, so I kind of want to bring it. If I were my opponent, I'd probably lead anti-Umbreon stuff. I'd go like Fluttermane and the Screamtail probably. If you go Fluttermane Screamtail, what's my best response? I think Dragonite's really poor into it, especially because I can't really extreme speed. Fluttermane can't really outrage. One response could just be Entity Armarouge, like follow me, Expanding Force, a Helping Hand Expanding Force to start the game. Wild Charge from this is also really solid. Okay, I'm down for Iron Hands Umbreon lead. Fluttermane in the back. And I don't really feel like I love any of my final Pokemon here. It could be Armarouge. It could be Dragonite. I don't think it's Indeedee. I'm bringing Armarouge mainly because of the Focus Sash here. I don't know. Maybe Dragonite's not bad. But the thing is, they also have their Indeedee, so if they set up Psychic Terrain, like Dragonite just can't really do that much. So, yeah. Let's see what they go with. Interesting. Armarouge. Also, Shiny Armarouge really does not look very different. Armarouge, Sandy Shocks. I'm generally okay with this. Speed increase. I think the main thing is it's obviously tempting to just click Fake Out here, but they could very easily switch in Indeedee and then Expanding Force and or Armor Cannon. They could also obviously just Earth Power. I don't really want to Grass Terra here. Umbreon's in a really nice spot though with Snarl, so I'm definitely clicking Snarl with Umbreon here. Just think it may be beneficial to conserve my Iron Hands. Especially if they have Tyranitar in the back. I'm actually down to switch into Armarouge right now and Snarl. And the main reason for this is just because I think Iron Hands is too important to give up this early on, especially with the potential Tyranitar in the back. It's also good into Fluttermane if I Terra, so I want to conserve it. I think my Armarouge is the least useful Pokemon in this matchup anyway. Let's see if they protect. Nope, they just go straight for Earth Power. Okay. I mean, I'm generally okay with that. And Expanding Force. Yeah, that makes sense. They were just trying to go all in on KOing Iron Hands, and that's a really consistent play there. There's not much I could do around that other than, like... Yeah, I could obviously click Fake Out on turn 1 and Snarl, but I don't think that really actually gets me very far anyway. But the nice thing is now I get a free switch in. Weakness Policy. Okay. That's a little scary. It does let Umbreon copy with Mirror Herb, though. Well, that's fun. Snarl's doing more. I can go into Fluttermane now. I would expect Grass Terra this, maybe. I think this turn I'm down to Protect plus Snarl, and then next turn I can, like, Moonblast potentially plus Moonlight. I mean, +2 Snarl is honestly no joke right now. I think Foul Play was another option as well, but I actually don't mind keeping the Armarouge around for a little bit longer. +1 Armor Cannon into the Umbreon will hurt, but I don't think that plus a -1 Earth Power Thunderbolt from the Sandy Shocks KOs Umbreon anyway. So, like, this is a great example of a matchup where Umbreon can be really solid, right? A lot of special attackers where Snarl is good utility. They can't KO us that easily. They're going to switch into NDD. That makes sense. Do you Terra the Armarouge now is my question. Psychic Seed on NDD, sure. No surprise there. Okay, no Terra. Could be a Protect then, I guess. Yeah, that makes sense. Protect, protect, protect. Maybe that turn was a little passive on my end. Expanding Force +1 certainly hurts here. You expect them to go for Follow Me, maybe, right? I honestly kind of want to just KO the... Yeah, KO by going for, like... Terra, Dazzling, and Snarl right now. Try to pick up a double knockout that way. We probably don't knock out NDD, but it's fine. I think my main question is whether or not Armarouge can actually get the KO onto the Flutter Mane now that they're at +1 special attack. Okay, so we're going to Fairy Terra here. See if they went for Follow Me or a Grass Terra. Nice. It is a Terra on their end. Grass? Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Like, I feel like you should Follow Me here. I guess the problem is... Well, let's see how this turn plays out. Yeah, they go for Follow Me. Okay, cool. So that played out kind of how I expected it to. I think if Flutter Mane survives the turn here, we're in a very winning position, but I don't expect it to survive the turn. Yeah, that almost just knocked out Armarouge. And they click Expanding Force. So +1 Expanding Force, Psychic Terrain boosted. Does KO Flutter Mane. But Snarl here should knock out the Armarouge and deal decent damage into NDD as well. No miss. Good. Cool. The only downside is now, like, Iron Hands isn't really doing that much for me. And they can obviously Earth Power it. I'm very curious what their final Pokemon is. I don't know if I needed the Terra there, but I felt like I needed the extra burst in damage to guarantee the knockout onto Armarouge. Because the thing is, if Armarouge survives that turn, and I bring out Iron Hands, you can just KO Iron Hands so easily the turn after, and that's really bad for me. So we know that Sandy Shocks with Booster Energy. That's not too scary for Umbreon. Umbreon can actually 1v1 it pretty easily. Yeah, so they bring Shocks out. I can't Fake Out because of Psychic Terrain. Umbreon is faster, though, than Iron Hands. So I think here I'm just going to Drain Punch into the Sandy Shocks and Snarl. Makes sense for them to just Earth Power Psychic. That actually did not do nearly as much as I thought it would. See if I survive Psychic then. Nice. Oh, Assault Vest Iron Hands is a monster. Beautiful Snarl from Umbreon. I don't think Drain Punch KOs here, but that's okay. Kind of comes down to what their final Pokemon is. Oh, almost got the KO there. But now they're at -1. So Earth Power is definitely not KOing us. Is Tyranitar their last one? If it's Tyranitar, can you knock out my Iron Hands is also the question. It is Tyranitar. Interesting. Okay. I mean, they should double up onto Hands once again. I'm going to go Drain Punch here. And Foul Play to KO Sandy Shocks. If we end up in a Tyranitar Umbreon 1v1, it's interesting because I do have healing with Moonlight. But if they have Low Kick, that can, you know, deal super effective damage. Okay, there's Earth Power. Yep, we survive. What's Tyranitar's speed here? Or yeah, you do have Low Kick. Okay. So it's a 1v1. They have Low Kick. I have Foul Play. And I also have Moonlight. But I need to stall out the Sand, which is the problem. Skill Swap doesn't do anything for me here. Four turns of Sand. I want to be intentional about when I click Moonlight here. I'm not healing that much from it, though. I'm going to click Moonlight this turn because I don't know how much Low Kick is supposed to do to me. Oh, they actually just went for Rock Slide, though. Okay. Well, the good thing about Rock Slide is that it can't flinch us. But the thing is, I only have limited PP with Moonlight, so I want to be really careful, right? Because ideally, we want to use it after Sandstorm. So there's still 3 turns here. I think I'm going to Foul Play this turn. 176 to 127. I don't know. Actually, maybe it is correct to just keep clicking Moonlight. Foul Play gets a crit there, which is quite lucky. Accelerates the battle for us. I'm gonna Moonlight now. What a crazy endgame. 115 down to 61. Having Inner Focus here is so nice. Like, not having to worry about flinches changes things a lot. Sandstorm is almost gone. Last turn. Yep, they just go for another Rock Slide. 99 down to 45. We'll get another Moonlight off. Man, this is a crazy endgame. No more Sandstorm. I still have 5 PP, which is a lot. A single Rock Slide miss at any point would also punish them. But yeah, shoutouts to Inner Focus right now. That is... I think without Inner Focus, it's very likely I lose this endgame, but with Inner Focus, we're in much better shape. I'll go for another Moonlight right now, because I don't want to get crit. But then after this Moonlight, I should be able to click Foul Play a couple more times. It's going to be really close, honestly, but I trust in Umbreon right now. What a battle, though. Really interesting stuff. I wonder if bringing Armarouge was the correct decision in this one. They have Heavy Slam as well. Okay. Okay, we've healed back basically up to full HP. So let's Foul Play a bunch now. Heavy Slam, 194 to 135. I think I should be Moonlighting here. I'm just like, whatever they use should bring me under half. Yep. We just want to click Moonlight, like, whenever we think we can heal basically the maximum amount or near the maximum amount. They go for another Heavy Slam. How much does Low Kick do to Umbreon? I actually have no idea. Go for Moonlight again here. Okay, nice. Oh my gosh. Just need to avoid a crit, I think, and we're good. 2 Foul Plays should get the KO at this point. Another Heavy Slam. Yep. Almost there. It's fine to just click Foul Play here, right? Like, they need a crit to win, and if not, we just win with Foul Play. Let's go, Umbreon. What a game. What a game. That was nuts. In this game, Umbreon managed to copy Armarouge's policy boost, managed to snarl multiple Pokemon, and managed to win an endgame against Tyranitar with Foul Play. Wow. That was wild. That was a really, really fun battle, though. I couldn't have asked for a better one. Now, we didn't use the Water Terra on Umbreon, but that's mainly against, like, Dondozo matchups. But that was, I think, as cool of a game as I can get with Umbreon. Was not expecting things to play out the way they did there. We did get lucky with the initial critical hit onto Tyranitar, but I think that... since I had one more Moonlight left, if that crit didn't happen, I would have just ended up Moonlighting one more time and then clicking Foul Play a bunch. So that endgame was really scary, but yeah, Umbreon having inner focus and not being able to flinch from Rock Slide is honestly such a big deal there. Because if they get a single flinch at any point, I honestly think I probably lose that game, and so being immune to flinch is so huge there. But yeah, they had a really strong lead, I thought, with like maximum offensive pressure. I don't know what I really could have led to beat it super easily, honestly. Like, Flutter Mane applies pressure, but they could just Terra defensively, and then I'm in kind of a bad spot. But if I led Flutter Mane Umbreon, I could have gone Protect Snarl turn 1 and then gone from there. I don't think Dragonite really would have been... I couldn't Extreme Speed, but I guess Outrage actually would have been really good there. So that's some food for thought, but what a game. One quick thing about that endgame, I was curious about the damage output of all of the offensive attacks from Tyranitar, because they had Rock Slide, Heavy Slam, and Low Kick, and so... all the damage is actually really similar to each other. This is single target Rock Slide, this is Heavy Slam, and this is Low Kick. Low Kick technically does the most amount of damage. I think like one reason my opponent might have held out on using it was to try to like stall out my Moonlight recover, then end the game with Low Kick. I do think Low Kick is honestly still just the most optimal to go for, especially if you just have PP max, but even not, like it's 20 PP, right? And so you can continuously click it and just give yourself the best chance. I think with Rock Slide, they might have been trying to fish for a flinch initially, maybe thinking I was either synchronized or forgetting about inner focus, which makes total sense. And then they switched to Heavy Slam. It does honestly... it's like such a slight increase in damage output. It's only 0.5%, so it doesn't really move the needle very much. So I think, like, in the grand scheme of things, that endgame wouldn't have actually really changed very much if they kept clicking Low Kick rather than any of the other attacks, because we still would have been able to heal back with plenty of HP. But yeah, starting that with the critical hit into Tyranitar made things a lot easier for me, and I was also lucky that I did not get crit. So not like the, you know, the most fun endgame to play in the sense that it was quite stressful and it wasn't like a guaranteed victory for us, because there is a fair amount of things that can go wrong for us. But yeah, I was just curious about like the damage output from all of these attacks, and in the end, Low Kick is still the strongest, even though it's only base 60 power. So yeah, really interesting one. Okay, we've got Iron Hands, Tusk, Flutter Mane, Amoonguss, Arcanine, and the Iron Bundle. Pretty standard stuff. Honestly, against teams like this, I kind of like NDD Armarouge because Expanding Force is just so strong, like Helping Hand Expanding Force. And in the back, I like Flutter Mane plus Iron Hands. So the main thing about a matchup like this is Umbreon is not very good. And the reason for that is because my opponent has multiple Pokemon that deal massive amounts of damage to Umbreon in Iron Hands, Flutter Mane, and Great Tusk. And even if I defensively Terra, for example, they're still doing a lot to me, and I don't do nearly enough in return, right? So the thing about Umbreon is you really want to bring it out in the right matchups, either ones where your opponent has a lot of physical attackers, for example, or they physical attackers that can't deal like that much damage to you, right? And in this case, like my opponent has some of the worst physical attackers we can run into in Iron Hands and Tusk. So they're going to go with Bundle and Tusk, okay? So what do I want to do against this? Follow Me plus Expanding Force is pretty safe. The only downside is they could Icy Wind plus Earthquake. But I think that's really risky when I could Wide Guard and or Protect Trick Room. The other part of me wants to go Helping Hand Expanding Force here. But I think that's a little too risky. Okay, I'll go Follow Me Expanding Force. Could also be Ice Spinner Tusk, which would be a little problematic for us. Okay, they just go for Freeze Dry. I'm happy to see that. And Headlong Rush. Nice. It's a really ideal turn 1. That doesn't even KO NDD. Nice. Okay. Where's the Focus Sash here? It's on Tusk. Cool. So Bundle just goes down in one hit, which is excellent. That was a really good turn 1 for us. I think the thing is now they could potentially bring out Flutter Mane. Yeah, but the thing is, Flutter Mane here isn't going to have Focus Sash. It's Booster Energy. Speed or Special Attack? Okay, that's a big deal, because it means I can just go for my Flutter Mane. So, like, here I don't mind protecting, I think. I could also just follow me. It's a question of whether or not they have Dazzling Gleam, because they could Dazzling Gleam and Headlong Rush for a double knockout, which would be kind of concerning. So I think protecting here and sacrificing this and getting a free switch it into my Flutter Mane is not bad. This also lets me scout for a Dazzling Gleam. Yeah, they have it. Because you could just go Dazzling Gleam, Earthquake, pick up a double knockout, and that would be pretty bad, but now I get the free switch into my Flutter Mane. I could just go for Life Orb Shadow Ball onto their Flutter Mane. Oh, they had Ice Spinner. Okay, so they could have gone for that on turn 1, but luckily for us, they did not. Although, honestly, if I had eaten up the Ice Spinner there, it would have given me the speed boost, which would have been ultra nice, but it's okay. So I'll go on into my Flutter Mane. I think the main thing here is I'm not sure Dazzling Gleam plus Expanding Force KOs them. I expect to be faster. Well, I should be faster, yeah, because they're plus special attack. So I have Life Orb Shadow Ball, but they might be bulky enough to survive. I think I'm okay clicking Dazzling Gleam and Expanding Force here. It covers for Protect on one end or the other. I think the scariest is probably Great Tusk protects here. And then Dazzling plus Expanding Force doesn't KO their Flutter Mane. But they don't protect. Cool. I think that should win us the game now because Expanding Force is single target into Flutter Mane. But you can see, right, like, I think bringing Umbreon into this matchup would have just been a nightmare. And I think, like, that's one lesson I had to learn while using this team. I kept forcing Umbreon out into a lot of matchups. And the reality is that Umbreon is very matchup specific. It can single-handedly carry you in certain matchups. But in this case, for example, you know, what's Umbreon really going to do into a Flutter Mane, into a Great Tusk, into an Iron Bundle? Like, the trades with it are just so poor. But now it's 2v1. We still have Terra. We have Focus Sash on Armarouge as well. It's been a very fast-paced game, but that's how games with this team can play sometimes. Okay, bring out Arcanine. Okay. Arcanine can Snarl us, obviously. 2 turns of Psychic Terrain. I think we just go for Terra with this. Dark Terra, Expanding Force, and Wild Charge. They don't go for a Terra, or they're slower. I also think maybe Drain Punching Arcanine was better there, because it would. There's a small chance they're Dark Terra on their Arcanine. I've seen Dark, I've seen Water, I've seen Normal. But turns out Armarouge is actually just faster. Gets a single target Expanding Force to almost get the KO. Cool. I don't think they can win the game given that I'm faster then. But yeah, I honestly like happy to have this game as an example of where like Umbreon is not good as we dodge Will-O-Wisp. But since we were faster, another Expanding Force just KOs anyway. Yeah, like the main thing here is I just like if you look at my opponent's team, Umbreon has so little utility. And so, yeah, I think that was a key lesson for me to learn while using this team. Because I forced Umbreon so often and I kept losing. And I was like, why am I losing so much? And it's because I would like actually lose a lot of pressure by bringing Umbreon into certain matchups. And so that's one thing you have to be smart about in Pokemon selection with this team. Okay. Terrain disappears, it's fine. Not really much they can do. Just go for Armor Cannon. Wild Charge. Actually, I mean, Dark Pulse Destroy. It doesn't really matter. Like, any move is KOing Arcanine at this point. So yeah, like, that's one of the things about this team. I feel like I played, like, 10 plus games with this team without ever leading NDD Armarouge, when it's indeed just one of the best leads with this team, because you have the Helping Hand Expanding Force combo, and that in itself is just so powerful right away. So, yeah. I think Indeedee Armarouge, especially with Focus Sash and the weak armor, is just so good into a lot of these like good stuff teams. But this game could have been harder if they went for Ice Spinner on turn 1, so we were lucky that didn't come out. Also, seeing Ice Spinner on a Focus Sash side in particular is interesting, but I think they were just trying to go all in on knocking out Indeedee to deny a potential Trick Room, but they didn't even actually end up getting the KO on Indeedee, so they needed to Hydro Pump there if they had it. But either way, that is exactly what this Indeedee and Armarouge combo can do. Okay, we've got Fluttermane, Iron Moth, Dragapult, Grimmsnarl, Rotom, and Gastrodon for this one. Grim scares me. I do generally struggle a lot against Fluttermane and Iron Moth, and my go-to lead against it is just Indeedee Armarouge here. Because we can just, like, go Helping Hand Expanding Force or Follow Me Expanding Force. My fear with this lead is they lead Grimmsnarl. If they led Grimmsnarl, I think like my Fluttermane and Iron Moth is a better lead, but I've lost games to Ghost Terra Iron Moth with the Fluttermane lead. Umbreon's not bad for Dragapult here. Snarly into Rotom and Gastrodon's pretty good. So I think I'll go Indeedee Armarouge with Umbreon and the Fluttermane in the back. And we'll go from there. Yeah, the interesting thing about Umbreon here is, like, my opponent doesn't really have that many physical attackers. It's actually a very specially oriented team with Fluttermane and the Moth as well as Rotom and Gastrodon, but that's where Snarl could have some value. It's going to be Fluttermane and Dragapult. Okay. Expanding Force is really strong here. The question is whether or not I want to, like, follow me. Oh, you know, if they Dragon Darts, they actually end up activating Weak Armor, which would be really sweet. I honestly really want a Helping Hand Expanding Force here. Let's go for it. They're going to go for a Terra, sure. Fluttermane Terras. Dark Terra Fluttermane, that's not good for me. Wow. That's very good. Not that common of a Terra type on the Fluttermane, but specifically amazing into Indeedee Armarouge. They're going to go for a U-turn as well. What a play, turn 1. Nicely done. I wouldn't be surprised if it were a double up onto Indeedee, but maybe they're clicking Dazzling Gleam. Man, that's a beautiful Terra by them. Excellent job. Excellent job. Well played. What a turn. They went for Imprison. Yeah, so this was just a guaranteed, like, I can't set up Trick Room. It's very clear my opponent has, like, a very solid answer and line of play into Indeedee Armarouge. Now, the upside for us is they did have to commit their Terra in order to accomplish that, right? I'm happy to click Armor Cannon here, I think. The problem is I didn't really bring a physical attacker in this one. What a play by them on turn 1. That was one of the sickest turn 1s I've ever seen against Indeedee Armarouge, man. Take a bow. That was awesome. I need damage onto Fluttermane. I'm going to go for Helping Hand and Armor Cannon. If you have Imprison, I really don't think it's going to have Protect. I'm sure it's Imprison, Trick Room, and then 2 of Shadow Ball, Moonblast, Dazzling Gleam. They just go for Gleam. Grimmsnarl did not go for a Screen, so I wonder if it's clicking like Spirit Break or False Surrender. Either way, we get Armor Cannon off. Wow. I actually didn't think that would bring it down to Sash. That's so strong. Sash, Dark Terra, Trick Room, Imprison. What a cool counter into Indeedee Armarouge. Ooh, they click Spirit Break. That's actually going to activate Weak Armor for me. Nice. Okay. That makes this really interesting. Because now I can bring out Fluttermane. Umbreon in the late game, by the way, can be really good into Dragapult. That felt like Choice Band Dragapult as well. The thing is, I think like Fluttermane protecting here feels fairly obvious. Does another Spirit Break KO us with me being at -2 defense is the question. Oh, wait, Fluttermane shouldn't have Protect. Yeah. Okay, that's a big deal. That is a big deal. I can Dark Pulse you then. And just Moonblast here. Grim switches, okay. into Rotom. Good switch. Yeah, this is where the weak armor on Armarouge is so huge. Flutter Mane feints. I think, like, the thing is, I haven't committed my Terra yet, but I don't want to Water Terra with the Umbreon. That's not good into Rotom. Good damage with Moonblast. I still can't get over that turn 1 by then. That was such a cool play. Bring out Dragapult. I could go Dark Terra, Dark Pulse here. I don't know if that one-shots Dragapult is the thing. I don't know that damage calc at all. Huh. It's just such an obscure calc. But also, what is Dragapult's best offense into Flutter Mane is my question. That felt like Choice Band Dragapult, though, I will say. Alright. I am down to go for it. What a play! Wow. Nicely done. They have been playing so well this game. I wonder if I should have just, like, because if I'm assuming it KOs, then I could have just Shadow Balled Rotom, and I feel like that is a potentially game-winning play. It's still fine. I think, like, I can definitely win the game with the Flutter Mane and the Umbreon, but now it's going to be closer. I feel like I could have won the game on this turn if I played it better. I don't know. I don't know my Dark Pulse calcs in a Dragapult, but with Dark Terra, I don't know. I would think it does get the KO. I also just don't know Dragapult's moveset. Like, I don't think I actually need to show it that much respect. That also did literally no damage. And they go Volt Switch. Nicely done. Okay, now the question is, like, do you have a move that can one-shot my Flutter Mane? Because I think Umbreon has the potential to win this endgame for us. But that was just a remarkable play. They've done such a good job, like, playing with Volt Switch and U-Turn in this game, and that Dark Terra was really cool as well. I definitely had the resources to win this one, though, and I think this last turn was a big one, right? If I just end up clicking Shadow Ball into Rotom, that's honestly probably a knockout. But the thing is, now I can go for Foul Play and Moonblast. Grim probably just switches here, right? Switch and Phantom Force is kind of a game-winning play for them, actually. See, they've been switching so much, I feel like I should make the read that they switch, but I don't really have an out with this slot. But if I can one-shot Rotom and then one-shot... Oh, yeah, actually that would work. Okay, so I'm going to Foul Play. I'm going to make the read they switch out into Rotom and Shadow Ball. Nice. Yeah, they've been switching too much. I need to capitalize off this, but I don't know if Shadow Ball KOs, actually. It probably doesn't now that I look at it. Oh, I needed to double up on a Rotom. But, oh, it wouldn't have mattered, right? Because I don't think I can beat Grimmsnarl at this point. Grimmsnarl with Spirit Break is too good into Umbreon. Yeah, okay. Shadow Ball wouldn't have KO'd Rotom. I could have gone Expanding for Shadow Ball. That would have won me the game earlier. But, I don't know. I was like, I have Dark Terra. Are they really going to expect that, right? And I outspeed, but they played this game so well. I'll go for Snarl, but I don't think I can beat Grimmsnarl at this point. Yeah, the one turn I can really point to in this battle that I think I could have optimized better was when I had the Terra with Armarouge. Especially because I was fairly sure they were a Choice Band on Dragapult as well. Is that Assault Vest Rotom? Like, it's not buried and it took a Life Orb, Moonblast, and Shadow Ball? I would think so. I could have gone Foul Play to knock out Dragapult here, but it's a 3v1 at this point. It doesn't really make a difference. Yeah, if I went Expanding Force Shadow Ball that turn, I would have knocked out Rotom. Dragapult hard switch there as well. And then, so the next turn, then I can just Dark Terra, Dark Pulse, Moonblast. So I had this game actually potentially won, but that turn I just got completely incorrect. Yeah, I mean, I didn't regret going for it because it's like I knew I had Dark Pulse plus the Dark Terra. So I figured I could really catch my opponent off guard with that. And I would win the game straight up there, right? If they stayed in with Dragapult and got the KO. Let's do the damage calc also, because I'm honestly really curious, but it's like, I didn't know the item on Rotom was the other concern, but amazing switches from them in this game. Well played. Yeah, so Terra Dark Armarouge does get the one-hit knockout on a Dragapult with Dark Pulse. I think basically what made things a little difficult for me was I didn't know the item on Rotom Heat. It felt like Assault Vest ultimately, especially given that it survived the Moonblast and the Shadow Ball, but I guess I'm not 100% sure. So point being, what I was worried about was like Rotom going for a Protect and then Dragapult just going straight for a Phantom Force into the Flutter Mane slot, right? So that's one play I wanted to cover for, but since I had seen the Moonblast damage, if I knew my calcs a little bit better, I could have maybe been able to deduce that it was Assault Vest or just super specially defensive. I was just really worried about like Rotom protecting, or yeah, like Rotom switching out into Grimmsnarl and Dragapult going for the Phantom Force there, and like this is a big surprise, right? Dark Terra plus Dark Pulse, and we had the speed advantage, so I feel like a lot of players there I could punish really heavily with this combo, but my opponent just made an amazing play. Like they played super well in this game. The turn one, like U-turn, pivoting out, getting, you know, double darks out so I didn't get any damage off with Expanding Force, and then turn two, like going for the Dark Terra, like super smart stuff overall. And I thought like Dark Terra on the Flutter Mane in particular is a really interesting kind of answer or counter to NDD plus Armarouge. So that's one of those games where like I think I can, you know, definitely possibly have won that game, but my opponent honestly played fantastically, so I don't feel that bad about losing because yeah, like they made phenomenal plays, so props to them. Okay, that is a very interesting team for our first match here. Houndstone, Lycanroc, Dragonite, Gastron, Staraptor, and the Hippowdon. Huh. I think Foul Play Umbreon is actually excellent here, so I definitely want to prioritize bringing that. The ground type damage in general is kind of scary, so I feel like Choice Band Dragonite here is probably decent. Although I do have to worry about Will-O-Wisp coming out from the Houndstone. Yeah, Houndstone is honestly pretty concerning here. Could go with the Psychic combo here with Armarouge and NDD. Yeah, I'm mainly thinking about beating Houndstone. I honestly like leading Umbreon because I think it applies a lot of immediate pressure against my opponent. Thinking about Iron Hands. Maybe Dragonite. Dragonite, Umbreon, Flutter Mane, and then don't love Armarouge here, especially with Sand. So I'll go Iron Hands as the last one. Anyway, I think Umbreon can actually be a beast in this just because of Foul Play. So we can also use Skill Swap, right? And swap away some of their abilities, which can be kind of fun. For example, Skill Swapping away from the Houndstone, I think, is really interesting. It's going to be Staraptor and Lycanroc. Okay, normally with Staraptor, I would expect Final Gambit. But I can just go Choice Band Normal, Terra Extreme Speed immediately to try to KO Staraptor. Or at least get it down to the point where a Final Gambit won't KO me. I guess because, I don't know, like double close combat Umbreon right now. So I'm thinking about potentially switching it out. But I don't hate the idea of Foul Play into Lycanroc, normal Terra, and then just Extreme Speed into Lycanroc. Or sorry, into Staraptor. The only downside is in doing so, I can't Terra Umbreon, and I thought Water Terra Umbreon would have been pretty interesting in this matchup. Because they don't really have that much to hit it for super effective damage. But this is max HP, max defense Umbreon, more or less. Okay, no protects, no switches. I get my Choice Band, normal Terra Extreme Speed. Almost one-shot Staraptor. They end up going for U-turn, that's fine. Okay. Staraptor moved before Lycanroc, and given that it survived the Extreme Speed, I would expect it to be like max HP, max speed. Choice Scarf Staraptor with Final Gambit. And they bring out Hippowdon. Okay, that's totally fine with me. We'll see if they clicked Close Combat with Lycanroc here. Nope, just Rock Slide. Cool. And because we have Inner Focus, I can't even flinch here with Umbreon, so Umbreon gets a huge Foul Play off into Lycanroc, enough where Extreme Speed certainly can finish it off at this point. Beautiful. Okay, pretty good turn one, all things considered. Question is what I really want to do with the Umbreon. Moonlight's not really going to heal that much because of sand, but I don't think it's a terrible option. I'm happy to just click Moonlight here. I think Extreme Speed onto Lycanroc is super obvious, but I don't think Hippowdon's applying that much pressure right now anyway. I think the one interesting thing here is if you switch into Houndstone. Yep. I could have doubled up onto that slot and gone for Foul Play as well, but I'm still fine with this outcome. Okay, so Umbreon's going to get a Moonlight off. They go for Yawn onto the Dragonite. That's fine. I think I can look towards skill swapping now away from Houndstone, which I think is cool. I could just Foul Play it as well, honestly, but like the idea of skill swapping and then switching out is pretty intriguing to me. But I guess I don't really benefit from being faster or slower anyway. So, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm actually down to just Foul Play and switch out into Iron Hands right now. I think the reality is that Dragonite finishes off Lycanroc and Staraptor. Dealing with the Hippowdon in particular is actually kind of tricky in this one, though, because we just don't really have super effective damage into it. But Umbreon with the Foul Play here is so good into my opponent's entire team composition. Dragonite will pivot out. Yeah, and I don't think like Armarouge or Inity would have been particularly that strong for us here either. Houndstone goes for Play Rough. That's fine. We get a Foul Play off here. Umbreon, you are so good. Okay, that was a critical hit. Fairly sure that critical hit mattered, but I honestly don't know my Foul Play into Houndstone damage calc super well. I think with that, though, it's almost impossible to come back in this battle. I do want to do the damage calc afterwards against the Houndstone. I'm curious if it has any chance of getting a one-hit KO without a crit. Because Houndstone does have pretty high attack, and obviously Umbreon gets the same type of attack bonus as well. So I'm curious if they have like no bulk, whether or not that has a chance of KOing. But yeah, with that, Lycanroc comes back out. Okay, they got a Yawn off into the Iron Hands. 2 turns of Sandstorm. I don't have Volt Switch here, unfortunately. Is there anything interesting I can do? Like, with Sand expiring, I honestly think I should probably just let Iron Hands eat up the sleep right now. I wonder if Lycanroc even has Protect in this position. But I think I need damage on a Hippowdon, so I'm down to click Foul Play into it. I think I will actually just switch into Flutter Mane here. Although, I think you can make the argument that it's better to just, like, sacrifice Iron Hands. I just, like, don't want to fall asleep and then be in an awkward position where I'm basically forced to switch. Whereas here, even if the Flutter Mane goes down, it's a free switch into Dragonite for me. Cool, Lycanroc goes for Protect. Nice. Umbreon gets Foul Play off into Hippowdon. That is no damage, basically. And then Yawn into the Flutter Mane slot, sure. Okay, so this next turn is the last turn of Sandstorm for my opponent. They can just Yawn into Flutter Mane again. I'm fine switching out here. I'll go for a Foul Play onto Lycanroc and then switch Flutter Mane out into Iron Hands. Umbreon honestly put in so much work for us in this game already. And at this point, I'm kind of just looking for the free switch-ins because both Lycanroc and the Staraptor are in Extreme Speed KO range. But yeah, Hippowdon's actually super bulky here, so I have to do some cycling in order to kind of get around this. But they reveal Helping Hand. That's really cool. Let me go for Rock Slide. Okay, works for me. With that now, I can just fake out Hippowdon, Extreme Speed Lycanroc. Okay. Oh, they have the item to boost the number of turns of Sandstorm. That makes sense. Okay, we just bring out Dragonite right now. I think I just play it safe. There's no, like... I think Lycanroc protecting here is super duper obvious, but Hippowdon's not really threatening me that much right now anyway. So I don't really feel the need to, like, make an aggressive prediction right now. Because I could lose, let's say if, like, they hope that I read into a Protect, play aggressively in a Hippowdon, and then they just go for, like, Helping Hand Rock Slide or Helping Hand Close Combat, and Dragonite faints, then the game actually becomes a disaster for me. Oh, is it Ghost Terra? Oh, I should have thought about that. Oh, no, it's Fighting Terra. Okay. Then I think it's game over. I didn't cover for Ghost Terra, but I don't really know how I can cover for that, honestly. It would be... maybe instead of going for Fake Out, going for Wild Charge and Extreme Speed into Lycanroc. I don't know, Ghost Terra Lycanroc is actually a thing as well, so I should have thought about that, but in closed team sheet best of 1 environment, kind of hard to fully assess what the right play there was. Like, do I cover for Ghost Terra, essentially? Because they didn't even end up having it, right? But I'd say Umbreon was definitely the MVP alongside Dragonite in this one. Both of them put in so much work, and I think being able to just distribute so much damage with Foul Play was amazing for us here. So I can just Extreme Speed now into Staraptor. I guess I'm intimidated. 2 turns of Sand. Extreme Speed. I'll just Drain Punch here. Hippowdon shouldn't be able to win offensively in a 3v1. And the one thing I want to make sure I don't do here is like carelessly switch Iron Hands out into Flutter Mane, and Flutter Mane just gets one shot. You can see how defensive this Hippowdon is, by the way. Like, it's a Foul Play and a Drain Punch combined dealing less than 50%. You go for a Yawn into Iron Hands. Okay, works for me. Yeah, at this point, it's going to be pretty hard for them. I actually think I am content to just switch in Flutter Mane at this point, because if you go for damage, that means you're not attacking Dragonite, meaning I just continue to launch these Extreme Speeds. And if you actually KO Flutter Mane at this point, it's fine, because then it means you're attacking, so you're not healing. I get a free switch him back into Iron Hands, Fake Out, Extreme Speed, Drain Punch. If I don't actually reels Protect, so it's Protect, Yawn, Helping Hand. That's cool. Yeah, but that means Flutter Mane gets to come in for free. Does it even have an attack then? Because I would expect like Slack Off as its final move, but either way we can just Extreme Speed plus Moonblast here. I guess technically the slightly more optimal play there is to switch Dragonite out and then bring it back in for Outrage, because then Outrage is, you know, guaranteed to target Hippowdon, but I think Hippowdon was low enough where Extreme Speed plus Moonblast would get that KO. So, yeah. I do want to pull up the damage calc and look at Umbreon against the Houndstone, because I am particularly curious about that calc. So, Foul Play against Houndstone, if Houndstone is max attack admin and has no bulk, is actually a guaranteed one-hit KO. I recently used Houndstone on the channel, and that EV spread had like 68 HP EVs and max attack, and so Foul Play is still a 7/8 chance to KO that kind of spread. And so, yeah, it was actually probably in Umbreon's favor unless they were super bulky Houndstone. For example, they have less HP or less attack investment and more HP investment. But either way, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty compelling argument for Umbreon, right? So whether or not it would have KO'd without the crit is very much determined off kind of the EV investment on Houndstone. But yeah, I think against a lot of the Houndstone EV spreads that players are running, it actually was a very high chance to KO, if not a guaranteed KO. So that makes me feel a little bit better. But either way, Umbreon was so good in that game, getting so many foul plays off and also soaking up so much damage. And so, yeah, immediately demonstrates why it is interesting in this format. Okay, we've got Golden Go, Dragonite, Volcarona, Mousehold, the Great Tusk, and Iron Bundle. So, Umbreon's decent here, but I do think Tusk is a problem. So we're going to want to watch out for that in particular. Banded Dragonite with Extreme Speed is solid into a decent amount. I mean, Tusk is just the main Pokemon I'm worried about here, especially with Focus Sash. So, I think our Flutter Mane's really good. We mainly want to eliminate Bundle ASAP. I don't hate the idea of leading with the Iron Hands and Flutter Mane, and in the back go with Umbreon and Dragonite. I could go Armarouge as well because it has the Focus Sash. Maybe Armarouge is a little bit better because it gives me a better matchup in a Golden Go. Let's try this out. What's my goal? Ideally to eliminate Bundle. If Bundle is eliminated, then it kind of opens the door for Flutter Mane. The main problem with Bundle is that it just offers my opponent Icy Wind speed control, which is pretty scary. If I were my opponent and I were trying to beat Indeedee plus Armarouge, though, what would I lead? I think Mousehold is an interesting one to me. I don't know if it's Population Bomb or not here. Population Bomb's pretty scary if so. I think, like, supportive Mousehold has been definitely the more common set so far in Series 2. Golden Go and Dragonite. Okay. Okay. I mean, the interesting thing is right now Flutter Mane puts on pressure against both Pokemon. But I don't know if you're inner focus on Dragonite. And I don't know who's going to Terra here. I'm going to be honest. I honestly really want to read into him tearing Steel Golden Go and just Drain Punch it and protect turn 1. I actually don't think I even lose that much, even if they don't Steel Terra here. But I think Steel Terra just makes the most sense. They could just protect as well. Okay, Golden Go switches. That's fine. What is that? Nice. Well, we'll see what Dragonite went for. Maybe it just KOs Iron Hands. Flying Terra. Yeah, it could be Terra Blast here, but either way, I'll take that turn 1. They're probably like, what in the world is this guy doing? But yeah, I kind of expected it to be Assault Vest Dragonite, so I was thinking if they wanted to survive a hit from Flutter Mane on both Pokemon, it makes sense to just go for a Steel Terra there and attack with both. This ends up working out even better. Goodbye, Mousehold. That was the best turn one I could have asked for. My opponent committed their Terra, got no damage off, and gave up a Pokemon. Like, it really doesn't get any better than that. But I think what's interesting is, let's say they bring out Golden Go right now, right? It's like, they bring out Bundle. Okay, I'm fine seeing that. And you are Booster Energy as well. Yeah, so Wild Charge is super free right now. The question is who to Wild Charge here. Because it's pretty easy to target Bundle, but they could pretty easily protect Bundle right now. I don't hate Wild Charging and then switching out into Umbreon right now, I think. Because I think Umbreon is pretty well positioned against Dragonite and Golden Go. Okay. Yeah, they do protect. Good protect. Very good protect. There's Terra Blast. Okay, into Umbreon. Yeah, that does less than half. Nice. I don't think a double up will even KO Iron Hands right now. So I'm happy to just Wild Charge into that slot and then just go for a Moonlight right now. This is one of the beautiful things about Umbreon in the format. It can kind of just come in and soak up a lot of damage, right? And there are so many physical attackers in the format, so having like a defensive switch in that can eat big attacks off and then heal back afterwards is super valuable. No reason to Terra Umbreon right now or Iron Hands, in my opinion, at least not this turn. Doesn't really help out against the combination of like Freeze Dry / Hydro Pump and a Terra Blast. The Dragonite's super bulky, or sorry, okay, they switch out, which makes a lot of sense. The Iron Hands is super bulky here, so yeah, I'm not that worried about taking too much damage currently. Okay, they go for another Terra Blast, as expected. This time into Iron Hands, sure. That also does less than half, beautiful. My opponent's made definitely the right two plays, basically back-to-back these last two turns, but I honestly think I'm still pretty well positioned right now. Jeez, that does so much damage. Okay. Got Armarouge in the back. Don't think it's really necessary. I think the debate here is whether or not I want to Water Terra to become resistant to Make It Rain. Because I actually think that's decent right now. But then it does mean I become weak to Freeze Dry, which is a little bit scary. Oh, just some food for thought there. I actually don't hate the idea of just Wild Charging here and then Foul Playing into Dragonite. Split my damage. Okay, Golden Go protects. That's fine. So it's going to be a Terra Blast, I'm sure, from Dragonite. See if they finish off Iron Hands or target Umbreon. Okay, they go for Iron Hands. That's a KO. Fine by me. Grants me a free switch in, which I've been looking for. And honestly, like, Umbreon right now... Oh my goodness, that did so much damage. Yeah, let's just bring out Fluttermane. With Fluttermane, Shadow Ball into Golden Go is super free. Should KO Bundle if it switches in. They could go for a double protect as the main thing, but I think Shadow Ball Foul Play here is just really safe. Even if they get the double protect and Terra Blast to KO the Fluttermane, I think we could still win the battle anyway. But they don't go for protect. Yeah, like, Umbreon was so nice in this game, right? It came in, soaked up that Terra Blast, healed back afterwards, and my opponent just doesn't really have that much to, you know, threaten it with the knockout right now. So, Dragonite's been launching all these Terra Blasts, but Foul Play should just get the 2-hit onto the Dragonite, and then it's a 2v1 against Bundle where I have Focus Sash Armarouge, so I can just bring it out, click Armor Cannon, and Foul Play. Beautiful. This game just kind of highlights, you know, Umbreon can stick on the field for a very long time, and Moonlight is such a critical move on it here, right? Because if we didn't have Moonlight, you can slowly just finish off the Umbreon, but with the Moonlight, like, my Iron Hands was applying a lot of offensive pressure, but then Umbreon's also actually applying pressure just a little bit more, you know, sneakily. So even though my opponent played basically, I would say, really well when they had the bundle out, like Protect into switch into Golden Go, into Protect Golden Go, and they essentially made the right play like all of those turns, it still didn't really make a difference here in the end. So you can just Foul Play and Armor Cannon. That should be a KO. Nice. But obviously turn 1 essentially just gave me a huge lead, right? I'm sure my opponent wasn't expecting to just lose Mouse Hold the way they did. But like I said, I was expecting Golden Go to Terra there into Steel. And in my head, I was like, okay, if you Terra into Steel, I get a Drain Punch off. Then Fluttermane is so well positioned next turn. The only really risky thing I think I would run into on turn 1 is if they ended up going for a Nasty Plot on the first turn without Terroring. But I guess then on turn 2 I could just Shadow Ball you, right? I guess though then on turn 2, given that I committed Protect, they could Protect with Golden Go and then like Terra Blast into Fluttermane. So then I have to think about that a little bit. But yeah, you know, sometimes I just want to play aggressive, and I think that turn 1 play essentially just gave me a huge lead and made it nearly impossible for my opponent to come back, even though they made all the right plays afterwards, it felt like. And Umbreon was just super, super good for us in this one, and kind of stalling out our, you know, Dragonite and making sure, making sure that their Dragonite just couldn't do that much to us and also heal back all the damage. So yeah, this thing's a really good pick into a lot of physical attackers in this format. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one, so thank you so much as always for joining me. Hopefully this episode has opened your eyes to the power of Umbreon in this format. I am a little bit sad that we did not get to use it against Dondozo in particular. I just ran into literally no Dondozo teams, but in the end, Umbreon was still really impressive and was definitely a major, major contributor to a lot of the victories that we had, especially obviously that very intense endgame in Game 1. So yeah, rental code is on the screen if you want to try out the team yourselves, and I'll see you all next time. All right, peace.